to this computer. And we are underway here. So everyone, thank you very much for jumping on to our second of three of our coaching workshop series. Tonight we've got our second, following on from Ryan Martin's great performance last week on skill acquisition. We've got number 2, nuts and bolts here, activities to foster specific skill development with Ryan has got a pre-recorded piece. And then we've got James Willocks, technical advisor of the New England Free Jacks, and then Mitch Wilson, a player and also coach up at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. So gentlemen, thank you very much for jumping on today. It's going to be a fantastic session. I know James has been chomping at the bit all day. Wouldn't leave me alone, fired up about the session tonight. He's got some good stuff that was actually recorded with Mitch today, so they'll tell us a bit about that. Excuse me as I let a few more people in here. But yeah, it should be a great session, and looking forward to getting stuck into it. Our second of three. Cool. So we'll move on to the next slide if we can. Cool. So just before we get going, we have our coaching certification course starting this Sunday. So that's our Foundations of Coaching course with Revolution Rugby. We've got Ben Herring leading that. Now Ben's a World Rugby certifier, so knows his stuff. He used to be the assistant coach for both Japan and Canada, the national 15s team and the women's 7s team in Canada. He's coached at Super Rugby level with the Highlanders, been the head coach of Otago, been assistant coach at Leicester Tigers, and in the Japanese top league with NEC Green Rockets. So it'll be a fantastic course looking at the more of the cultural and leadership based elements to coaching. So for anyone that's keen to jump on, you can go to academy.freejacks.com, is at the bottom there, and get stuck into it with us starting Sunday. I know James and I are both going to be taking the course ourselves, so it should be a great upskilling opportunity. Cool. So with that said, I'm going to leave it to James here to take it away. Jimmy, cheers.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Tommy. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to jump on. I know we're all getting pretty comfortable with these Zoom conferences now, so great to see a lot of people on here, and hats up to TK and Ollie for doing a really good job putting this content out there. It's certainly helps develop things, which is wonderful. So just following off the back of what Ryan went over last week, we had a lot of bigger picture type building sessions, how to integrate skills into. This is more of some specifics that you can do that you can integrate into your sessions. And we've gone really basic. I've gone really, really basic, and hopefully something that you can all apply to your programs now, particularly given restrictions and everything that we're dealing with. So we've got some activities that will sort of be able to help with that. So obviously, contact is tough to do right now. So we sort of went with the attacking skills and the fundamentals of catch pass, and everyone loves a good catch pass activity, and it's killing me that we can't play touch right now. So we're improvising, and hopefully we can get there soon. But we've got basically just a little activity that we use quite often at sort of all levels, all the way through. The collegiate program here uses it, and we use it at the Free Jacks as well. So big emphasis on attack these days, and sort of we understand the importance of staying square. So we've got just a couple of clips actually from the North-South game this weekend, just of great examples of some good attacking work and ball carriers staying square and or squaring up to sort of pin defenders and sit defenders down. So there's a couple of sort of quick videos here of the from the weekend to highlight a couple of those things for a start. Into it.
North have it, they've lost a bit of ground just inside the half. Mackenzie quickly through the hands, Caleb Clark in a bit of space, Rico Ioane, TJ Pedernara there in support, Mackenzie, oh brilliant hand-to-hand stuff, and the North are in again. North have it, they've lost a bit of ground just.
So a lot of really good things there, but you can see sort of the development of Rico Ioane's game here too. Traditionally, he probably would have carried and tried to run over top of this number 8 here, but does a really good job staying square, engaging the defender, making that short little ball to Damien McKenzie, who then does the same to put Caleb Clark away down the outside.
Inside the half, Mackenzie quickly through the hands.
Wonderful example. Just a wonderful example of this really, really simple skill done really effectively at the highest level. And obviously a key part there is Damien and Rico both staying square and engaging the defenders. There's another clip here too of Richie Mo'unga, slightly different context, but you can see his last minute squaring up and what that does to the defense as well.
Showing up with those beautiful handling movements. Here's one being put together by the South, and it's taken them within a couple of metres of the line. And through for the try is Tyrell Lomax.
You can see here, initially he's a little lateral, but you can see his last minute, he just squares up to sit those defenders down. And then obviously some great lines off the ball as well. But just that sort of micro detail of him squaring up to force these extra defenders to sit down is sort of goes a long way, and obviously goes a big sort of does contribute to this try being scored. So it sort of highlights the importance of staying square and being square as an attacker. Great angle here. Nice work on the video too, Tom. Nailed it.
Well, spectacular finish to a beautifully created try.
So again, that's sort of the, I guess, an example of the skill being executed in game. So now we sort of transition into this really, really fine activity, very, very simple activity drill to help develop a lot of those things. And sort of Coach Martin last week sort of used the training wheel analogy about using training wheels and not using training wheels. And the reality is this is probably sorry, I have a child sitting here playing with me. Charlie, can you quiet for a second? That's very good. So this is probably like a wheel type activity. So it's very, very simple, but sort of once you start to look at it, you can realize that as simple as it is, you can go really, really deep and really complex. So make sure you really nail the micro detail, if you will. So the little things can become really, really important. And this is really good for all levels, for students, for players, athletes, brand new to the game, through to players like Mitch Wilson, for an example, who was running this activity today. And even just doing that had some great takeaways. And we've actually been using this a lot with Stephen Hinshaw, hooker from the Free Jacks, who's really developed his catch pass using this activity. So you can see there, that's just a nice simple screenshot of the setup. Requires minimal equipment, 6 cones, a ball, and 4 people. So basically this is a seesaw passing activity. So what you'll see is, you just let it play, Tom. There's no sound on this, so I can talk over it. You'll just see us walking through it for a start. Really, really simple. Guys on the edge are feeding. Guys on the inside just sort of nailing those catch pass fundamentals, if you will. So this is just us walking through it for a start. Nice and simple. Great activity because you get lots and lots of touches too. So plenty of touches, plenty of reps. And even those feeding the ball still get sort of touches on the ball. So here it is just being executed a little quicker now. Didn't like the service there, so I gave it back to him. Really, really simple activity. You look at it like this and you go, wow, that is really, really basic. And the reality is it is. But if you go back to even sort of slide 1 from last week, it's all about intent as well. So if you can have great intent behind this, you can actually end up getting a lot out of it and developing sort of a really strong passing game. And obviously, see the distances here, we spread out quite a bit. Mitchie backs his wide ball, so we wanted to spread out. But the reality is you can change the distance and the dimensions basing on position, based on your needs, based on your experience. So what we do now, once we've got this, is really start to break things down. And sort of how we break it down, and sort of one thing that we use is split the pass up into its different components. So if we get into the next slide here. So basically we can break it down to a setup, nailing our setup. We can break it down into a catch. Sorry, we then transition into a catch, our action, which is sort of our passing mechanics, and then our finish. Right, so even in a really small sort of activity like this, we can get really specific with what we're trying to achieve. So if we go into a setup, yes, Charlie, good job. So you see the first point there is working nice and early, right? We talk about behaviors, and working early is a great behavior, particularly from an attacking standpoint. So we want to get in position nice and early, and it's really easy with a small activity like this, but we want to get set nice and early. And ideally, we want to set up hips towards the ball, so our outside foot's forward, right? So that allows us to generate momentum forward and put us in a good position to receive the ball. So, and actually this photo here is, I actually quite like it, because the reality is my inside hand, so not the hand with the watch on it, probably wants to be dropped down by about 3 or 4 inches, just so that it's going to help with the catch. So if the ball's coming nose up, then all of a sudden, if my inside hand's dropped sort of 5 inches from it is there, then it really helps with the catch and the transition. I don't need to adjust my hands and I can get rid of the ball. But you will see a lot with particularly players in this country who have a football background will go wide receiver style with their inside hand over top, which makes it really hard to catch and pass the ball without shifting it. So even paying attention to sort of hand setup is really, really important. And then we start to look at the feet, is how we split our feet. And the analogy that we sort of use is you want to accelerate onto this like you'd run a 40, right? And a 40 yard, a 40 meter, whatever it is, you're trying to get down as quick as possible. And in doing so, sprinter's stance, we think about loading up our front, right? And that helps us win that first 4 steps. And then obviously there's that obvious piece to it. And it's pretty easy to be neglected in a sort of a fine activity like this, is that scan early. So still encouraging to have a look up and see what's in front of us, just to really reinforce that behavior. So we've nailed our setup. Then we shift on to our catch, right? And it's really, and I know a lot of people say this and it's very cliche, and we're coaches and we live in the world of cliches. That so a lot of people say the most important part to a good pass is a good catch. And then I don't know, I had this conversation with Mitch today that a lot of getting a good catch is actually getting a good pass. So the most important part to a good pass is potentially a good pass, which doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so ideally you'll see here we want to catch before the midline of our body. All right, so we reach our hands out towards the ball. So it's hard to see hand placement here, but you can see that inside hand or the back hand's dropped a little bit, right? And the reality is, like I said before, we want to catch the ball how we want to pass it. So there's no hand adjustment at all. And even we did the academy with the free jacks, and there's a lot of sort of really good college players, and a lot of them even struggle with catching and shifting without that sort of micro adjustment of their hands. So really stressing hands up, fingertips up, catching nice and early to give you a lot of time on the ball, and then to allow you to pass it fluidly. And there's actually, we've got a little example of this being done well and not so well at the end. And then sort of on catch, we're stepping forward, right? We're winning that space forward. And you'll see down there that bullet point, that first action is forward. Again, like running a 10, if my first step is to go backwards, that's not good. So I want to load up that front leg and I want to drive forward on the catch. So we break it down. We nail the catch. After we nail a catch, we move on to our action, right? So obviously I want to get my eyes up. I want to see what's in front of us. And sort of as I've alluded to before, we are stepping forward on that pass. And there's sort of, it's a little micro rotation of the elbow, if you will. So if you nail your catch, you just think about flipping your inside elbow over, and that's going to get you into the triple threat position, right? And it's sort of, I know basketball players use that a fair bit, but the reality is this position here, you can do anything from. You can carry, you can kick if required, you can pass if required. And still, even for type 5 forwards, for big boys who aren't going to kick, this is still a really good position because it keeps them as attacking options. It doesn't make them black holes that defenders can tee off on. So this triple threat position is really, really important. And then sort of the way to develop this is then we just get faster hand speed, right? So even when we think we've nailed it, we go back to square one and we try and do it again, but with more hand speed. And it was interesting, even in filming this and doing this activity, I know Mitch has got some take on it a little bit, but you start to think about everything really, really specifically, and you can start to lose some of the big picture stuff. So I think that's really where it's really important as coaches, we be very specific and we pick 3 things max. Here's what we're going to focus on, right? So for example, here with a lot of the college guys, what we do is we'll just talk about the catch, we'll talk about staying square, and we'll talk about finishing towards the target, right? So we're not going to worry so much about how their footwork is initially, the specifics of their catch. Let's just catch early, stay square, and find the target. And then layer things in as we go, as to save sort of bogging them down with information. So this is too much detail right off the bat, but if you can be specific with how you layer in the detail, it can go a long way. Then the finish, right? Classy finish, hands towards the target. Staying square is really, really important, right? And there's a lot of us have had this tendency on the pass, and even as we're finishing the pass, to drift towards the target, right? And so you can see the importance of sort of that Rieko Ioane example, right? If Rieko had caught and drifted, the defense would have been able to slide with him. So it's really, really important that we stay square and engage those defenders, even on the pass, right? And then once we've made our pass, that's when you can work towards the ball and support, right? And I think sevens, I've been pondering this for a little bit. Sevens, as wonderful as it is, right? Sevens is a great game for developing sort of the fundamentals of rugby. It can teach bad habits in regards to staying square, engaging defenders. Because you've got more time and more space, you're able to catch and drift, right? And in 15s, you've got more than double the number of defenders, so you can't really afford to do that. So it's really sort of really important to make sure we acknowledge that staying square and having that fluid passing action is sort of a key part of the 15s game. So we'll go a couple of videos now. So this is actually just an example, right? And so we look at the catch, for example. So see it pauses there. There's a nice early catch. First step is forward, right? Nice smooth transition. Ball's gone. Right, so when it comes back, that guy in the hat off the other hand. See, there's some things there, Mitch, you might even talk about too. But you can see here off this side, so you can see how the catch is sort of almost midline. So in order to pass, the ball's got to be recocked and gone again, right? And you can see the outcome isn't wonderful either. So that's even just one of those small things, right? So that was our catch element there. And that was just an example of it being done well in one and not so well in the other. And we're lucky, we've got a drone, right? So we can put that up and we can film that. But everyone's got iPhones. Get footage of your athletes square on in front. And it's really, really easy to break this down. You just pause it. Okay, how was my action on the setup? How was my action on the catch? How was my action on the action? How was my finish? And you can provide feedback that way. And a really small activity doesn't require a lot, and you can get a lot out of it. So I think Mitchie's probably got some pieces here to jump in on, and then we can go over another couple of things before we get into Ryan's hand speed activity.
All right, guys. Well, as you can see here as well, just by going through this video here and being able to rewatch such a simple and basic drill, you're able to get great feedback. As you can see here, James doing a great job really punching through and finishing. And you can even take a look at the passes coming from me, and you can see that I'm not completely finishing through to that target. But that's just one feedback that I've already noticed right off the bat just by being able to look at this footage. Tommy, if you just want to go ahead now.
Go ahead, Mitchie.
Yeah, here we go. So, guys, so why we want to do this drill, obviously with the modern attacking system, most of us are running the 1-3-3-1. What we want to do with the 1-3-3-1 is obviously shift that ball, get that ball all the way across the park, getting everyone to move that ball. And in order to do that, you need to have accurate passing. The importance of playing square is definitely just to be able to buy and be able to engage the defense early, make the defense come up with decisions, and rely on your outside attackers to make calls. The purpose here to be playing flat, obviously, like I just mentioned, engage that defense, make them come up with decisions early. And then just this here, you can really start with basics and then obviously progress and break down those micro skills. Just want to go ahead, Tom. So this is obviously a great drill to do as a warm-up activity. It's good to do as a warm-up activity just so you can obviously get those movements in, warm up your body, but then also just be able to see those pitches early in the training session. And that way, as you move on into the training session, into your into your unit sessions or your team sessions, you've already seen some of those pitches. It's great for small areas and small groups, which is good for obviously social distancing and COVID, which is something everyone's dealing with right now. And then you can even integrate it into your gym and your S&C sessions.
That's a good point too, isn't it, James? I know that early on in our pre-season, Mitch, you can probably attest to that. Some of the big boys would come out of the session saying, mate, I only touched the ball sort of 3 or 4 times that whole session. So how am I expected to hang on to it when, I'm only touching it 12 times a week? So James, you had some good thoughts on incorporating skill work, particularly catch pass into warm up.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think if you look at the traditional approach to the warm up, it's and you may still do this. And I mean, it happened when I was playing. Is you get to the footy field, and coach says, "Right, go take a lap, go take 2 laps, go take 4 laps." And I think now, particularly given the player base and the experiences that we have in this country, like we've got to get more touches on the ball. So you look at it from an efficiency standpoint, right? And it's like we've got varying levels of coaches here, right? We've got top collegiate programs in the country, we've got club coaches, we've got high school coaches. Regardless, more touches is always better. So, and some club coaches, you may only have 2 sessions a week, right? It's like, so how do you maximize those 2 sessions? And 4 laps of the field probably isn't going to maximize your development collectively. So it's a great opportunity to get there. This is part of your warm-up. It's got your movement, you get your blood flowing. It's sport specific. To Mitch's point, it almost primes your skills for the rest of the session. So it's sort of, and this isn't the guts of a session, but this is a really small activity that you can do. Guys can do on their own. They can do it post-training. You can do it as part of a warm-up. And you'll see at the bottom there is sort of integration into S&C sessions. A big thing, and actually and I know Ryan does this with Otago currently, and we've done sort of different versions at New England, but I spent some time with Otago a few years back when Tony Brown was coaching them. And that was the first time I saw integration of skill work into the gym. He would come into the gym with the boys, do their catch pass, do their track tackle in their sets. So if you come back to an efficiency piece, and I realise that not everyone here has their guys, girls, whoever it is, athletes, students in the gym. But if you do, a great conversation with your strength coach is, okay, how can we integrate some of the fundamental skills we have into some of that dead space, if you will? So for example, up here at Dartmouth, what we'll do is during our rest periods of our primary exercises in our gym, we'll set up small catch pass stations where we run this exact activity. And to sort of Tommy's point, all of a sudden we leave the end of the training week and we've had 70, 80, 90, 100 more catch pass opportunities that we wouldn't have had. So even in a really small activity like this, it can add tremendous value to developing our players collectively. And then that's interesting, and Mitch can run through this, but I'll just sort of just pause it there for a second, Tommy. Cool, yeah. Oh, it'll go anyway. Like the sort of the knock on that activity is, okay, well, there's no kinematic feedback, right? So you're not reading what the defender's doing. And I sort of, my counter argument to that is going to be, well, that's not the point of the activity. The point is to really fine tune the micro skills. But here's a progression that you can do of basically this activity to add that kinematic feedback. So you're reading what the defender in front of you is doing. So you've got to make a decision. Am I going to shift the ball quickly? Am I going to carry and take that space? So this is just a sort of a little progression that we can add, and you can add to this activity.
So yeah, just to echo off James's point there, this is just a bit of a progression and incorporates a bit more of a decision-making process here. So we're just going to call this our trigger and pin drill. Basically pretty similar to the seesaw drill. You're going to stay square, catch early, finish with that pass. And just in this drill here, you're going to rely on your outside attacker to make that decision for you. So you're going to receive comms from him, whether to trigger, which would be if the defender was giving you pressure and you had to move it early, or whether you pin that defender by really attacking the defender, sitting him down and preserving the space to the outside. Just another note on this drill here. This also goes into the point of playing flat. If you can see, if the defender stayed back and I was supposed to pin him, but I just gave it early, it gives the defender time to come up and push off to that next attacker. Where if I run at that defender, sit him down, make him make that decision, then I can preserve the space to the outside and give that ball to the outside. And then just another thing on this, obviously, if you got that ball in the triple threat position and that defender pushes off onto the outside guy, you can still carry yourself. We just want to run that. I was going to say, if you can just run that through just one more time. So you can see there. So the defender's just going to come up, either put pressure on that ball carrier. If he puts pressure, you call trigger, move that ball to the outside guy. And if he sits back, you want to run square at him, preserve the space, and give that pass.
Nice. That's nice, Mitchie. Some good execution there, mate.
Still got it. You still got it. First try scorer. Bring him back.
And just to touch on the moustaches too, we're doing mullets and moustaches. I think the Free Jacks have raised $2,500 currently towards mental health. And that's why we're representing these horrible things on our upper lips, the three of us here.
He does have one. It just the lighting's not doing him any favors.
Yeah.
Nice. So that flows on quite nicely, and it's kind of nice that we're kind of focusing so much on catch pass, because that's what we've sort of been limited to a lot of with our academy stuff at the moment. So on Monday afternoons, we've had our academy group coming down and getting some really good skill work and some small games, all within the COVID regulations that are currently in place. So it's kind of relevant to a lot of stuff we're doing day to day at the moment within our Free Jacks Academy system. And then working off that basic skill execution, the fundamental skill execution, we're moving into what Ryan Martin's pre-recorded here, and catch pass continued developing hand speed. So he's got 2 examples of Otago versus Southland at a pre-season game, 2 good tries scored off good catch pass speed, execution of that skill, and then why it's so important, and then an activity and helping to develop that skill. So James and Mitch can touch on that at the end too, and if you've got questions, we'll open it up to a Q&A after. But for now, we'll get that video up and underway.
Okay, what I'm going to show here is a really easy drill to promote hand speed. I'm actually going to show 2 examples from the weekend where we scored 2 awesome tries through hand speed. And the thing with hand speed is catching the ball early, shifting it across your body, but the outcome can also be creative, how quickly we move it across. The drill I'm going to show is what I call trailer ball. So in groups of 4, the first ball fed in is our respected ball. What that means is we don't want this one to drop. We want it to be super linear as it goes across the line with the nose up to the receiver. The second ball, which is trailing the first ball, creates the hand speed. So the boys get rid of the first pass, so they've got to quickly get rid of the second ball. Now, at the end of the line, they are allowed to be creative with how they deliver the second ball to the coach who's in the middle of the drill as a gatekeeper, so they can flick that on in any way possible. Really easy drill to promote hand speed and put people under pressure, because after they pass that first ball, the second one's coming straight away. As I mentioned, the first ball should not be dropped. The second one, we can be creative.
Cool. Some pretty good stuff in there. I know James and I were talking about that earlier, James, and sort of a good drill to build off what you guys were talking about with if you don't have the fundamentals down with a good early catch, nice efficient pass across the body, then you're not going to execute that final drill well. And that was sort of the purpose, was to put the Otago team under pressure in that training session, and that hopefully develop those skills that are going to lend to those nice tries that we saw scored in the end there. Jimmy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think sort of it's really good, at least my take on it is that, look, we've got a really, really simple activity that anyone can apply, that anyone can do, particularly here and now. And then you've got Ryan's take on, here's one of the top teams in the globe right now executing still a very, very simple activity, but just with a different twist on it. And hopefully, again, it's really, really simple, right? And I think that's sort of, if you go back to the start, right, it's about intent, right? It's sort of, that's the, again, cliche, we love cliches. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think that's really important, right? And even just for Mitch and myself, right, having filmed ourselves doing that, we're already sitting here watching the film going, okay, geez, I need to get better at this. I need to get better at this. And in self-defense, we actually haven't had our hands on the footy ball in a while, so that's why it is a little sloppy there. So we'll own that, but we've got to get better. So intent is everything, and just the importance of film again, probably comes into it, just to be able to see what you're doing, what you're coaching, and provide your students, athletes, whoever it is, really good quality feedback to help them develop.
Cool. Good stuff. So we'll open it up now to a bit of a Q&A. If you've got any questions, a nice simple session tonight, 30 minutes, a couple of key drills that you can take away, a few key teaching points as well, to hopefully take away and start implementing in your team, and some drills and activities that can be done in the current confines of the COVID climate. Or it might be that you've got a few points or things that you've done that have worked really well, but we'll open it up to a bit of an open discussion now to anything that you may have before we sign out. Any questions, feel free to type through as well if you're not comfortable turning off the mic. Cool. While we wait for that, I'll just ask Mitchie and James, who was the better executor on the day today down working on that catch pass skill?
I think James has it. Still got it. Finishing those passes a bit better than me.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. I'd make the argument that to still have it, you had to once have it, so that's pretty tough to do. But no, I mean, like, it is, and we collectively, like, you watch it and you want to get feedback and you want to get better. So even really small activities like that are wonderful for driving development. But yeah, I'll give it to me as the short answer.
And then James, mate, you were down for the tracking day and a couple of the sessions. What were your biggest takeaways on the areas that the athletes, and the purpose for the tracking days is sort of to identify talent in the area, to push forward for higher honours, as well as just upskill our player base that we do have in the New England area. So what were your biggest sort of takeaways on things that athletes could probably all do with working on?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Tom. And obviously a lot of what we did was catch pass related. And some people are really confident, some people not so confident. And I guess sort of one of the silver linings of COVID is that we have an opportunity to really refine and focus on some micro detail. Call it a silver lining if you want, but we've got to make something out of it. I think it would be, a lot of those little things weren't done very well. Like I said, like a lot of catching hand over top and then adjusting hands and ball, right, which just took a whole lot of time. So if we can sort of start to really nail the catch portion where guys are catching and shifting, and that'll certainly help.
Cool. And a couple of good questions here. Jack's got one. The first is, would you recommend running forwards with backs together in a catch pass warm-up or just in separate handing drills? Jimmy?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? And I guess it depends on, it's a horses for courses type answer. I guess it depends on the makeup of your team, and how you're trying to play. I'm a big fan of mixing it up, because like regardless of the number on your back, you should have a collective skill set. And we're not going to get ridiculous and ask our tight heads to throw a 30-meter bridge ball, but we will mix it up. I sort of think that helps with cohesion. But if you do have a really new team and maybe you're trying to play a style that is quite sort of forwards have these roles and backs have these roles, then maybe that's why you split it up. But I'm a big fan of sort of collective integration.
Cool. And Mike Bowen has got a question here. Let's go Mitchie. What 3 points would you focus on in the first drill for, say, the first, second and third sessions after introducing for newer players?
I think obviously you start with that setup and then you go into the catch and then finish. I think as a progression, you can start to spread out those outside players, push those passes a bit more. You can add defenders if needed to put a bit more pressure as we went into that second drill. But I think especially for those new players, just getting those touches and repetitions of, catching early, finishing through with your pass and just staying square.
Oh, good stuff. Anything to add on that, James? Or is Mitch?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great start, right? It's like, okay, let's have them reaching early, let's have them staying square, and let's have them finishing. That's a great start. And then as you start to layer in, okay, the next level of our catches, we're starting to look at our hand position of our catch, right? And we're talking about not adjusting the ball. So the next layering in is the early catch, is the staying square, but you're no longer you're not allowed to adjust the ball on your hands anymore. And then sort of the next thing, you start to get deeper, you start to look at their foot movement off the line, right? You talk about that sprinter stance. So I think that's something I would start to develop later once you've got the early catch, the hip square, and then the finish. And I mean, it's just, the reality is you pick any 2 or 3, and as long as you're hard on them and your athletes understand this is what it looks like, this is where I'm supposed to get to, if you can just consistently drill that, like I said, like if you do this for 30 or 40, I mean, you probably like reps a day, all of a sudden you've accumulated an extra hundreds of reps during the week, and these things then become habit. So I hope that answers your question, Mike, hopefully.
Good stuff. I know that's sort of similar to what Ryan was saying end of last week, James, and that you can cue your players that are more skilled with sort of finer cues and finer details, and sort of stress them and put them under pressure with things like, let's get the nose of that ball slightly up when you're hitting the target and stuff of that nature, whereas your players that are newer to the game, you're just focusing on the real fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, and then the one thing that you can always get better at, I think, is hand speed. It's really trying to nail hand speed. So even once you've nailed all those, you've checked all those boxes, if you will, the thing that you can still start to work on is hand speed. Is nail that again, but do that quicker. Nail that with a quicker launch. But again, I think you could do this for years and years, and players do this for years and years. Liam Steele, for example, would do that sort of second activity, that pin and trigger activity after the end of each training session for 10 minutes every time. And he's been doing it for years. And it was just really good to see there's even this real simple activity being executed at its highest level. And I think we probably saw that reflected in Liam's game. I mean, great distributor of the ball as a centre.
Yeah, we certainly did see a couple of great tries. I know Puasa scored one off a Liam Steele pass, and I think there may have definitely been a couple others through the season. Just another point to touch on, James, is one thing that we've been doing, and thanks to Ollie's great work bringing down the projector and allowing academy players to watch some rugby. What rugby have you been watching over the past couple of weeks? That's another element, is alongside the basic skill stuff. In the COVID climate, you can also watch a lot of rugby and pick up things. And what have you been watching at the moment, you and Mitch, I guess?
Yeah, I'm biased, and as is Mitchie, we've all got our own biases. And I know the Premiership started up overseas, and we're watching some highlights of Premiership, but it bores me, to be honest. And again, I openly admit I'm biased. I'd much rather watch Southern Hemisphere footy. So obviously watched the Super Rugby, and I loved the North-South game. If you get an opportunity to watch that, it just sort of, it highlights everything that we've been talking about here, and even everything Coach Martin's been talking about. There's those things being executed at the highest level, at the highest pace, under the most pressure. So if you get the opportunity to watch that North-South game, I'd watch that. And I know Mitchie's been spending most of his days watching the Australian Super Rugby.
Is that right, Mitch? Have you got a favourite Super Rugby AU team? Is it right?
Yeah, Waratahs, mate. But New Zealand Super Rugby's been very entertaining, so I'd encourage you to watch that as well. It's all on ESPN Plus, and you can also catch, I think, the top 14 is also on. Pro 14's on ESPN Plus as well, where you got the Irish comp, and that's pretty entertaining as well.
Good stuff. And we've got a couple of Eagle boys too playing Premiership rugby at the moment. I think Will Hurley's playing for Saracens. Kapeli Pifaleti is with Saracens as well, I believe. And then Paul Lasike is obviously with Harlequins. So you can also catch those boys playing in the Premiership.
And AJ McGinty at Sale. Don't forget AJ.
And Edge. That's right, Jimmy. Good man. Cool.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Hey, guys, thank you so much for running a top session there. A couple of real simple key takeaways for basic skill development and implementing that in a deeper level as well. Next week, we've got our final free session of our coaching workshop series, where we're going to be looking at building out a full session plan. We'll go through a couple of examples of free jack session plans from this year and talk about the what and why behind that. And just as a final reminder, we do have our just bring it up here. We've got our coaching workshop certification course beginning this weekend, which will be really good. There are 7 to 10 developmental videos for coaches per week, and then a weekly recap activity and seminar on the Sunday. So that'll be a real specific 3-week block. So if you are keen, then make sure you get stuck into that. I think we may have a couple more questions here, do we? If I can bring them up. Cool. Awesome. Justin, Olivia, Mike, Ronaldo, thank you so much. Thomas, Jack, as always, for signing on. Jimmy and Mitch, cheers for the time, lads, and making that happen.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Wonderful. Thanks all. Stay well.